to the Blue and Gold Radio, your podcast for all SAE, FFA, and agriculture adventures. I'm Lyla.
And I'm Natalee, and we're your hosts for this podcast.
We currently serve as your 2023 to 2024 Florida FFA District 9 President and Secretary. And we could not be more excited for our year's service with some of the brightest FFA members from across District 9.
Today we have a very special guest with us. We have the Florida FFA Area 4 State Vice President, Emma Self. Emma Self, we're so glad that you're here with us today. Just to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Like you said, I'm the Area 4 State Vice President, which just means that I represent Area 4. I'm from Polk County. I'm actually from Bartow. I was born and raised there. Moved a little bit, but always came back to my hometown. That's something I hold very near and dear to my heart. I never knew what agriculture was or FFA. Got into it because one of the middle school advisors, Miss Palmer, came to our elementary school with a trailer of pigs. I thought they were smelly, but I thought they were super cute. And so that's how I got interested in agriculture, and I took a class, and then I got interested in officer positions, contests, and did it all throughout middle and high school. Leading me up to this point as a state officer.
All right, perfect. I love that. Okay, so we have two little segments. We're going to do more state office and more SAE. Okay. So our first roll of questions is, what was your drive going into state office?
Yeah, great question. So I think that my drive, at my first state convention in 8th grade, I saw Hannah Wagner give Maddie Dvorak's jacket to her. And I remember that moment so vividly because I was like, wow, I really want to do that, but I never could. I just can't imagine myself doing that. And then throughout high school, I kind of worked towards it just in case. And then junior year, I was like, maybe that's not what I want to do. But senior year, there was, everyone asking me, are you going to do state office? You definitely should. And I started to think less about myself and more about the members. And I thought, well, if I was doing this for myself, it would probably be easy, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do the hard thing. So I think my drive was the students, and especially the students who maybe needed someone to understand them or to listen to them. And my whole campaign thing was share your story, because I think that there's a lot of the times when a lot of people's stories go unheard. And so I think it's not only important that I shared my story and let students know, that there's someone out there like you too, and there's someone who wants to listen to you, but also, why don't you tell me about yourself, and letting them have that outlet in you. And like we just talked about earlier, I wanted to be a person to those students, and I knew that state office was a great opportunity to do that. So that was my drive, was, doing it for the members.
I love that mindset that you had right there, being able to think about other people and not just yourself in it, because with being a state officer, it comes a lot of responsibilities, and it takes a selfless heart to be able to do the things that you have to do. And I think that being able to keep that mindset when running for state office, being a state officer now, is just what makes you true and very realistic and personable, like we were talking about earlier. And I really love that about you, Emma. So with that being said, my question for you is, what is one thing that you didn't expect about state office?
Okay, so I would definitely say one thing I didn't expect was what goes into planning workshops. I had no idea all the little things that go on. Like I said earlier, we have this national facilitator, Jason, come in, and he teaches us, how to put on a workshop. And you think, well, I don't need that much practice or training, right? Actually, Florida FFA last year, I think y'all were at SLS. You were, Lyla? No? Okay, so they let us do the workshop, so y'all might have attended those or whatever. They were student-led workshops, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but then I learned how to actually put on a workshop, and I did not know what I was doing. And so there's so many little things that go into it, like from where you put the materials in a room and the order you give directions and little things like that, and then all the way to the things that state staff do and stuff. And that just makes me have so much gratitude for them, because it takes a lot. So you go to a conference and it's literally a day, maybe a day and a half, and you don't realize that there's so much work that goes into it. And I think that's super cool, and it gave me a new respect for Florida FFA and kind of the leadership side of it. Yeah.
I think like that's something I've always wanted to know is like how those workshops and stuff work, because it's a lot. I can tell it's a lot just by looking at it, but you guys like do it so effortlessly. Like you're just like, hey, like it looks like seamless, and you guys know what you're doing at all times. But like I know, like in the back of the head, it's like I know there's a lot of planning, and like sometimes you're like, oh no, what do I do?
Yes.
But
yeah, exactly.
truly, it's just like it's because you planned and you did it so well. So I think that's like it's something that you don't like expect, but it's something that you learn, and I think it's a really good skill to have even whenever you get older, is because you figure out those problem solving things and how to plan and figure out the steps and stuff. So I think it's a pretty good thing to learn about.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question that we have are, what are some highlights and key responsibilities of being a state officer?
So definitely some highlights are the time I get to spend with the members. I knew that I was going to be spending time with members this year, but I didn't realize that I would be making true friendships. I just kind of thought like, oh, I get to make connections when I meet a member, but some of the highlights are getting to see that member again. So I meet them maybe at a contest, and then I see them again at a chapter program, and then again at a conference, things like that. That's definitely a huge highlight. And then some key responsibilities, kind of going along with that, I would say the biggest one is always being available to connect with those members and willing. A lot of the times, like we were just talking about those conferences, it takes a lot of energy out of us and we're really tired by the end of it, but the whole point of state office is to give up a year of yourself and give it to those members. And so having the energy, even if you have to muster it up somewhere deep down inside you, to continue making those connections and being there for the members, being able to answer those questions and bond with them and advocate for the industry. Definitely another key responsibility is always being open to learning, right? So whether that's learning new leadership skills, or if it's learning about the industry and going to industry stakeholders and talking around your community, and even just reading those magazines that we get in the mail or I pick up at my Farm Bureau office, things like that. Just always learning. And then another huge responsibility that's almost underlying is just service. So being willing to serve and help out whenever you can, in your area, out of your area, for your state staff, without your state staff even knowing, anything like that. Just always being willing to serve.
I love that, because even if it may not be what you're supposed to do or in the kind of job description, you go out of your way to even do little things like being on this podcast and talking about your experience with FFA, how your journey through state office is going so far, and just making those connections. I know that my first time ever meeting you was at the Farm Bureau contest whenever you were giving your speech. And I just remember seeing so much positivity from you.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't know if you wanted to run for state office at that time or not, but I do know that you left an impact on my life. And I just remember being able to have those connections that we make, and even now you're still coming back to people who's not even in your area and talking to us about how those connections that you make are some of those key highlights and responsibilities that you do have. So with that being said, my next question for you is, how has this position impacted your personal growth?
Yeah, so we've already talked a lot about the people, and I think what comes with that is learning how to interact with those people. I think that that's something that has definitely impacted my personal growth. I've always loved people on my team. We make a joke that I love conversation, and I just love to make friends. I remember like at Citrus Expo, I would make friends with like the 60-year-old women because they were super cool, and then I will never see them again because they live in California. But I've always loved that, but I didn't realize that there was such an art to it, and there's so many skills that go into working with people, not only students that I meet, but with my team as well. Obviously, if you put 7 random people together to work together for a whole year, that's going to have some difficulty because we all come from different backgrounds and have different experiences and perspectives on life. But that is something definitely that I have learned, is how to work with those people and how to love them, no matter who they are or where they come from. We're going to have some differences, but that's almost something that we can appreciate about them and bond over, as well as the similarities. So I think I've definitely grown in how I relate to people, and it's helped even outside of FFA, meeting anyone now or talking to anyone. I feel like it's a little bit easier, more comfortable, and exciting.
Yeah, I think making connections is probably one of the biggest things, because I feel like sometimes whenever people think, oh, it's so easy, you must be so talkative, you must know how to make connections with people, you do it so easy, but it's really the background of going into it. You don't just walk up to somebody, you're just like, hey, and then you make this deep connection with them. Like, it takes,
right, exactly.
There's lots of stuff that goes into it, and it takes a lot of learning on how to connect with different people that you may not understand as well, or you don't understand what they're doing. So I think that's a good thing that comes out of state office, is learning how to connect with people, because it's another skill, again, that you can learn and use for the rest of your life, because it's something that you learn right then and then whenever you're young. And so you just build up on that as you get older, and you just become, even to help other people is really a big thing, is to be able to learn how people work and how you can help them in situations whenever they're down. So
Exactly.
yeah, leading into probably one of my favorite questions is, what's the most memorable moment from state office? It can be funny, serious, whatever you want.
So the most memorable moment for me was actually, like, I would say a month and a half ago. We were told at our checkpoint 2, which is a series of training, that our homework for the night, so we would train all day and then we had homework that night, and our homework was to tell each other, so the 6 other people on my team, a story, the one story you would tell for the rest of your life if you could only tell one story. So we all would pick one, and we were kind of thinking of it throughout the day, and then we sat around our table in our workroom and we told the stories. And I have never felt so at home and inspired by the people around me. I've been with these people for, let's see, it was November, so it had been 5 months. I've been with these friends, teammates with these people for 5 months, and didn't realize these stories about them. I think like 5 out of the 6 stories I heard, I have never heard before. So it was so inspiring, and they were like, obviously stories that mean so much to them, because it was the one story you would tell for the rest of your life. And most of them, a couple of them were funny, but most of them were sentimental and meaningful to them. And it was just so inspiring to see where their motivation comes from and where their heart truly lies. And it grew us closer together. I remember we had a deep talk the night after too, and it was just something that I'll forever be grateful for, and I'll remember those stories if I ever need to pull something out of my tool belt to talk to them, or in a time of need. I kind of got to know them better, even though I thought I know them really well. Turns out I didn't. And there were a few tears shed, but they were the good kind of tears, and they were the kind, that made me feel all warm and fuzzy.
I really like that. And I think that's something that a lot of FFA members don't realize, is that there's these students who run for state office. They get it and they have a year of service. But a lot of them, they don't know each other, and you have to make those connections in order to have a successful year. Mm-hmm. From your chapter officer team having your retreats to have team bonding, or just being able to be district officer, being able to get to know each other. It gets those connections that you have with each other that makes your year become a success. And us as FFA members, especially Florida FFA, can see how much of a success this year has been so far with those connections that this state officer team has made. And Mr. Jason has done a great job with being able to work with y'all and being able to have those times and y'all can learn about all this stuff, learn about each other, and being able to perform as a team.
Yes.
So my question for you would have to be, getting a little bit out of the state officer realm, but more back when you were in high school, middle school, FFA years. So can you provide basically an overview of what your SAE was?
Yeah, so I had a couple different SAEs over the years. I obviously have listened to your podcast, and so I've heard you guys talk about how many different SAEs there are outside of county fair. However, I didn't know that whenever I was in high school, and if I did know it, I almost didn't want to try, which is something I wish I could go back and redo. So what I saw right in front of my face was Polk County Youth Fair, and since I'm from Bartow, that's actually where the youth fair is held. So, there's people coming from like hours away within Polk County, and I literally lived right across the highway. So that was what was available to me, and my ag teachers made it super easy and accessible for me to raise those animals and things like that. So I did fruit production, market lambs, and market hogs. Fruit production, I didn't get super involved in that. I did blueberries and citrus, did pretty well in blueberries, not so much in citrus. We're not going to talk about that. I'm just kidding. But I would say what made the most of an impact on me was the market hogs and market lambs. So I showed market hogs for a couple years. That's when I fell in love with Polk County Youth Fair and gained a whole new perspective on animal production and how that all works and how much work really goes into it, and being able to educate consumers about that process. And my middle school ag teacher, like I mentioned, Miss Palmer, she has a whole facility going on for all of her students to have the chance to show a market hog, and so that was a lot of help. However, my junior year, Polk County Youth Fair brought back market lambs, and so I tried to do that. I raised one for about a month, but he was super sick. It just didn't work out, and so me and my mom decided we would try again my senior year. And luckily, my senior year, Miss Sanchez, who was also at the middle school, but she had just graduated from UF and then went to the middle school. And so I only knew her from her coaching par pro for us for like 2 weeks, the summer of that state convention. So I didn't know her that well, but I knew she was a great teacher, and she actually learned about market lambs from some Area 5 teachers and training over here. And so she brought her knowledge over to the high school, and that girl was my saving grace. So I decided I wanted to get a market lamb, and he was 185 pounds, which a normal market lamb is not that much. He was crazy, and that was probably partly my fault. I didn't really know what I was doing, but Miss Sanchez was a huge help. And so yeah, I obviously, yes, did have a lot of different SAEs, and they were market, so they were entrepreneurship SAEs, because I got to make money off of those. But I would say the one that impacted me the most was the market lamb my senior year, and his name was William. Yes.
I think that's honestly like how you can like probably one of the best ways I've seen like encapsulate SAE, like the multiple different ones that you can use. And also you said that you didn't know about the other ones, but we don't knock the entrepreneurship, the animal ones, because those truly are important for the agriculture industry and understanding those ones that are more widely accepted, I guess, in a way. SAEs for FFA members, or at least the most knowledgeable ones, because I know we've said this before, we didn't know making a podcast was a SAE going into it. And then like I'll tell people, I'm like, oh yeah, like my SAE is making a podcast, and like their head like whips around, they're like, you're what? So I think that's just like cool, understanding the one that you can, I guess it's one of the most relatable ones, and understanding and being able to connect with people like, yeah, I had some rough times too, but I came up back from them. I learned from people were my influences, and that's how you can bounce back from that, I guess.
Yeah.
So also with your SAE, you said you had a lot of experiences with them. How did your SAE play a role in preparing you for your leadership within FFA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I said, my senior year market lamb was the one that had the most impact on me, and that was because it was really, really difficult. It was something that I was learning. It wasn't just an easy, like, I feel like a lot of my market hogs were pretty easy. Their temperament wasn't an issue. Walking them was easy just because everyone I was surrounded by. I don't know if you've ever been to the Polk County Youth Fair, but there are pigs everywhere. There are a ton. And so it was more natural to me. Not that I grew up in it or anything. I just in school knew what it was about. But then you throw lambs at me, and I'm very grateful that I was influenced to try. But the fact that I did try and didn't give up was something that definitely impacted me and led me to having better leadership skills because of the fact that I learned perseverance. I feel like as an FFA member, there were a lot of things that I tried and I was like, well, I didn't immediately get a state championship. I'm not going to do it again or something like that. And so for me to be able to do that and keep going, and my drive at first was, oh, this is a market animal, I'm going to make money off of it. But it turns out I didn't make money off of it. I barely even broke even, you know? And so just gaining the skills from that and the dedication that I kind of taught myself, but William really taught me that dedication. He forced me to teach that dedication. But it overall was super rewarding. I ended up getting reserve grand champion, which I was like, whew, I got something out of that. Thank goodness, got a belt buckle. I don't, but it felt like if you put in the work, something will come out of it. And I felt gratitude towards that, especially.
I definitely can relate to that because with my SAE that I have, I show market hogs. I also show steers, and sometimes you can be put in a hole with all that finances you have to put into it, especially whenever our animals get sick. It's either going to die and all your money that you spend in it's going to be wasted, or you spend even more money to help it get better.
Yeah.
And although the money might have not been the main focus for this SAE, or in the beginning for some it might have been, but for me it was more about the lessons that was learned.
Exactly.
Just like you were saying about the perseverance that you learned, that even through these challenges that you went, that's your responsibility. Just as our parents' responsibility is to take care of us, it almost feels like our animals is like our child.
Yes.
That we have to take care of to show that we can actually do something. And for my 6th grade self, I definitely learned that I can actually show an animal. I can raise something. And it's crazy to think that I came from no agricultural background, just like many of us here have, but being able to have those little memories and things that we can learn from our experiences, just as you had, Emma, really can help us shape us into the person we are today. And perseverance is definitely one of the biggest lessons you can learn from different types of showing your different market animals.
Yes, very well said, Lyla.
Thank you. So my question for you is, was there any unexpected lessons that you gained from your SAE? I know that you talked a little bit more about that, but just to go a little bit more.
Yeah. So I would say unexpected lessons is just the basic things, like more of the logistical, which we won't really get into all that, but just the basic care of market lambs. So like you talked about, when you get sick, you almost spend more money for that animal. Whenever my junior year lamb got sick, I learned all about taking care of an animal, and wow, you really have to be there 24/7. And it kind of became I know we kind of make jokes on the internet of like your Roman Empire, and that was like my Roman Empire was my lamb all the time. Like, is it going to be okay? And then moving on to my senior year, am I going to show okay, right? I talked about kind of some behavior issues, and I was scared I wasn't going to perform well in the ring. And even though it was just my county fair, it was a big deal to me. And so I would say definitely an unexpected lesson is just the treatment of the animal and how much we really need to put into those animals. And I feel like this is getting off on a soapbox, but the uneducated consumers who think that we treat our animals so badly, yet we are spending all of our time and money to make these animals better, and spending time with them and giving them the best life. And in turn, it educates us so that we can be better advocates. So I definitely didn't know that all of that would come out of just one simple project that turned out not to be so simple.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely don't know, because I don't show animals, but I'm surrounded by it. Like, I see my friends doing it, I see them doing it. They're like, oh, sorry, I can't go, I have to go do something with my animal, I have to do this, I have to do this. Like, I understand how much work that they put in the animals, and it's like something that I have to like applaud them for. I was like, the fact that you can do all this and still have the time to go care for your animal, it's something that I like Lyla, you guys, it's just something that I admire from afar. I'm like, wow, like, I love the agriculture industry. It's just not my thing to go and play with the animals and go show an animal. It's just not my thing. Like, I'll help you out, I'll do whatever, but it's just not my thing. But being able to see the logistical side, the analytical side of everything that you have to do that goes into getting this perfect animal to go to sale and just have to walk into that ring and not know if they're going to do well or not.
Right.
Like, you walk in, you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll figure it out. So I think that aspect of it is just something that I have to learn through watching, I guess, because even just people ask me like, what do you know about the agriculture industry? I can tell you what I know. I might not have as much hands-on experience, but I can learn from other people to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's all about exposure too. I want to be an ag teacher, and I think, oh, well, I've never shown a steer. However, I've watched my friends show steers, and I've gotten a more exposure into that industry since becoming a state officer, and I'm so thankful that I can take that to teach my students. And it's all about even just knowing it exists, and then you can just start to ask questions. So even though you may not have hands-on experience, I know that you ask those questions to your friends and those surrounding you, and that's what it takes, is just a little bit of exposure.
Yeah, exactly. Exposure is probably the biggest thing into learning in general. You might not have to do everything hands-on, but at least seeing it and being exposed to it is how you learn.
Exactly.
So part of that is, what was your favorite CDE or LDE, and did that help you with your SAE?
Yeah, so I would say my favorite CDE, so I did forestry for like 6 years, and so everyone would think, oh, well, if she knew a lot about forestry or whatever, but I just didn't really love it. But then I did nursery and landscape. I think it was my junior year, and I just loved it. I loved all the different practicums and everything that went into it, and even though I hadn't done it for very long, I wished I had, because it was so much fun to me, and I love getting to go to the state contest and things like that. And so I would say that definitely played a role in my SAE, because again, it taught me to work towards something. And so once I found out I liked it, I tried again the next year and worked towards it again, because I knew it was a goal that I wanted to achieve, was to go to that state contest and do well. And then my favorite LDE was extemporaneous speaking. However, we talked about this earlier. I went to a sub-district contest my junior year, and I didn't win, and I was like, well, what? Like, I won sub-districts my freshman year. How did I not do that my junior year? But you don't realize it could have been anything, and God's plan is not to have you win every contest after you win your first one, right? And so I think that extemporaneous speaking taught me more of the not so much practicing and working towards your goal all the time, but loving it enough to try again. And so I just kind of gave up and didn't realize, oh, I loved extemp. Why didn't I do it? Why didn't I try harder my senior year? Because I loved it so much. But because I loved my lamb as much as he got on my nerves, like, it definitely taught me, if you love something, and for me that wasn't only him, but just the industry as a whole, and agriculture and animal production, you need to work towards that goal and work to be a better advocate and a better steward of what you have.
And I think even with the times that you did those contests with nursery and landscaping extemp, you were still able to learn about many different parts of the agriculture industry and the aspects that go into it, and apply that to your future careers as you do want to become an ag teacher, as you said, as well as with your SAE, learning about extemp, thinking on the spot. We've talked about it earlier, but with these different types of people from different organizations who might not understand the agriculture industry, or even just consumers, being able to have that background knowledge, thinking on our feet whenever we're trying to sell our market animals, especially, or just talk about agriculture, we need to have that background info and be able to think on the spot. And I think extemp was a perfect contest for you with all that. And although we all have regrets or things that we wish we would have done differently, I think, like you said, God's plan happens, and everything does happen for a reason, and we can apply our energy elsewhere and do different types of things. So even with that, not being able to do extemp your senior year, you have a story that you can share with others now and be able to encourage them so that they don't give up on those contests, or so that they know they still have a chance.
Right.
So our final question that we have for you today is going to be, what is one piece of advice that you would like to share with the listeners?
Okay, so one piece of advice that I would like to share is to be yourself. It's very cliche, and I know there's going to be people making fun of me because self is my last name and I said be yourself, but I mean it. And I was told on my very first day of 9th grade, okay, be yourself, and I didn't understand what that meant, but I now know that if you try to be someone else, you will only ever be second best. You will never make it to be that person. And God designed you exactly how you are in the places you are to be the person that you are meant to be. And you have your own individual purpose. Just because someone else's purpose looks better, just because their life looks better, and that may even be on a highlight reel, that doesn't make it any better. I like the quote where it says something like, don't measure your success with someone else's ruler, because it's a completely different thing. And so I just think when you stay true to yourself, you will eventually find yourself surrounded by a community and surrounded by the people and the events and the things that are meant to be in your life, instead of, I tried to be more like this person or more unlike myself, but I'm finding myself in situations that I don't like, or I don't feel, I don't get that spark. But when you truly start to be yourself, you realize you don't need anyone else's acceptance except your creator's.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the basis of everything that we do. If you're going to go out and try and act like somebody else, like you said, you're only going to be second best. If you're not you, how are you going to be able to go out and be like, hey, this is me, if it's not actually you?
Right.
You can't go advocate for something. You can't go talk to somebody else if you don't even know yourself. You can't be a supporter of something if you can't even support yourself in what you want to do. So I think that's the biggest thing, is being able to understand yourself. If you can't understand yourself, you can't help yourself. You can't do anything like that. So it's just truly being unique. Accepting who you
embracing.
are. Yeah, accepting and embracing and understanding that you might be a little different. You might have little quirks that some people don't have, but that's what makes you you. And I guess finding, I like seeing that in other people, like, oh, that's like a cute little thing that they have.
Yes,
and, it makes them memorable. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I think that's so cute.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what I admire about people. I like to pick up on the little things that people do. I like to see how they react to certain stuff. And I don't know, I just like reading people and understanding who they are. And if you're trying to figure somebody out and they're not who they are, I feel like people can tell when you're not being yourself. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if you guys have any questions, or if there's something that you'd like to learn about this podcast, or if about Emma, just DM us and we'll get in contact with you at the Blue and Gold Radio on Instagram.
Now, with that being said, I believe we just concluded our 4th episode of the Blue and Gold Radio. Thank y'all all so much for tuning in, and especially thank you, Emma, for coming with us today and speaking on your journey. Now, with that being said, thank y'all all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.